New fly-on-the-wall BBC documentary follows 4 men with electronic tags. They are stuck in a vicious cycle of having their movements tracked or restricted by the justice system.
They're just a handful of the growing number of people who've had to wear a tag many times, either because of multiple offences or for breaching their conditions. In a moment, we'll be talking to those involved in making the programme, but first, here's a look.
Christian is on his 9th tag. It's a GPS that tracks his location at all times.
This one's what got me out of prison. So, godsend. And having this tag on my ankle is a constant reminder that my freedom is literally one mistake away from being taken away from me.
Christian is looking back at his life before prison.
Definitely don't want to go back to prison. Well, it would be 5 years ago, and that's when I got put on tag as the last-ditch hope to keep me out of prison, and my last chance. And, well, we all know how that ended, didn't it? I ended up doing 4 years at Her Majesty's pleasure for aggravated burglary.
6 months into Christian's jail term, his mum died.
My mum never told me. She didn't tell me when she was ill, and it was like I was the last one to know. I was in a very uncompassionate situation, but on the other end of it, I came out of it. If I can get through my mum died, I can pretty much get through anything. Well, priority number 1 is don't breach my tag. Don't go back to prison. Stick to what I've agreed to. Keep my freedom.
So a clip there of the programme. Joining us now, Director of Britain's Most Tagged, Izzy Fonseca is with us. Morning, Izzy.
Morning.
And Mike Nellis, Emeritus Professor of Criminal and Community Justice at the University of Strathclyde. He's with us, joining us from Glasgow. Good morning to you both. Thank you. Izzy, let me start with you. Fascinating, this. And it's an insight into a world that we all probably feel we know a little bit about, but don't really know the details. Why this topic? What made you choose this?
So I came to this because I'd done some previous BBC Three. I'd done a previous BBC Three series, so I kind of they knew that I could kind of talk to this sort of audience. But this is the 5th series of Tagged, and I guess that shows that there's a big interest in it. Each series is has a slightly different theme, and this series it was people with multiple tags. It's called Britain's Most Tagged. And so, yeah, looking at people with multiple tags, so kind of the cycle that perhaps people get into once they kind of enter a sort of life of crime.
And it gives you a different perspective, doesn't it? Was there anything unexpected that you learnt from filming this series?
I think the thing that surprised me was the cycle. I think some of the contributors, they say that actually being on tag helps them sometimes because it's a reminder that their freedom is sort of precarious, and also that that they, the alternative is sometimes prison, so they're kind of happy to have it. But then when it felt slightly like a sticky plaster at some points, and so when it comes off, is it necessarily going to change their lives? We don't know. And also the length of time that they could be on tag. A year it feels like a really long time to have something on your ankle and be constricted to the conditions.
Mike Nellis, we're hearing there of, these are repeat offenders or people that are constantly needing to be on these tags. The whole point of tags, of course, is to take a little bit of pressure off the prison system. It's also one of the alternatives for the justice system. But is it working if we get repeat cases like this?
Well, I mean, that's a very interesting question. I mean, thank you for having me on to talk about this. I guess it depends what you think the government wants electronic monitoring to be. And over the years, I think it's the government's view of the purposes of electronic monitoring have changed a lot. And you're quite right to emphasise that it is mostly about taking the pressure off the prison system, and any support that it gives to individuals is almost incidental to that, because as Izzy has just said, this is much more about control than about change. It is a constant reminder that you are under the auspices of the criminal justice system, but it's not really by itself helping you to sort your life out, to find opportunities that will enable you to get beyond offending.
Yeah, and that's sort of the point, isn't it, Mike?
Showed.
That it needs to happen in conjunction with something else, that tagging alone on its own can't make a difference.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think the research evidence shows that as well. The best results you will get from someone wearing a tag is when there is support given to them simultaneously, so that support makes a difference to their lives once the tag comes off. I think that was brought out very clearly in the programme.
I just want to briefly ask you, Mike, because you wore a tag yourself for a couple of weeks. What did that make you think of the experience?
It's true, I did. And I'm not saying that replicates the experience of the guys in your documentary, because nothing bad was going to happen to me if I breached the tag. But I learned 3 things from it. I learned that the technology is very effective. I'm sure it fails sometimes, but most of the time it doesn't. And I actually had the maps on my own computer screen, so I could follow how this device was tracking me. It knew where I was going. It knew when I was crossing the boundaries of artificial exclusion zones. It certainly is a reminder. It is something you cannot not be aware of. Now, whether that feeling remains over a year, whether you just get used to it and it ceases to have any kind of thought-provoking effect on you, is an open question. But for the 2 weeks that I was wearing it, I absolutely could not forget that I had this thing on my ankle. And thirdly, I did find it alarming and uncomfortable to know that somebody knew where I was all the time. Now, I'm not an offender. I haven't broken the law. I'm not worried about somebody breaching me if I do anything wrong. But the knowledge that somebody knew where I was all the time was psychologically disturbing. I think that would be true for some, if not all, of the young men you had in your programme.
And Izzy, that's what's interesting about this. A lot of people will think they know how these tags work, the idea that it's supposed to keep you at home. But actually, they're really clever, aren't they? Because it will know if you're going to a place that you shouldn't be, or you're away too long, or you've been in in another area that is part of your exclusion zone. It's not just about keeping you at home.
No, yeah. I mean, there are different types of tags, and so like one of the contributors, Timothy, he's on a GPS and a curfew tag, which means he both has an exclusion zone, so he can't go into the centre of Bradford, but he also has to be home by, I think it was 8 p.m. And in his house until the following morning. So yeah, I mean, for him it was interesting or problematic really, because his college was in the centre of Bradford, as was his nearest probation office, and so it meant he couldn't go to college, and because that was in his exclusion zone, and so he couldn't go to college, and he had to go to a different probation office. He had to get 2 buses to go to a probation office in another town. So it does affect your life and where you go.
Izzy, really good to talk to you. And Mike, thank you for being with us. If you want to watch that programme, it's the latest episode, Britain's Most Tagged, tonight, 9:45 on BBC 3. But you can watch all the episodes right now on the iPlayer.